right, this is a story from high school that's particularly embarrassing to me after, it's a pretty great beginning for me. It gets bad. Foreshadowing. I've got Bill and I've got Chris. Bill is in a handful of stories. I think he's got some corrections he wants to make to some, but we'll get to that later. And then I've got Chris.
Oi, oi.
Chris is the English fellow. Who wants to start this one?
Well, I think it's important that, Kevin, you set the scene as the ladies' man.
I'll set up all the fun stuff. So in high school, I went to LAN party with my friends and stuff. Not these friends. These were my cool friends. Yeah, that's right. You guys were my cool friends. Unbelievable.
That's depressing.
And that's why the events that follow happen.
It is.
Of the betrayal that we felt this night.
All right, so I was at a LAN party at Leighton's house. I haven't seen that guy. I don't think I've seen him since school ended.
Pretty sure he's dead.
To find out, because if he is, that's an important. So we had a LAN party at Leighton's house, and I always had this really misguided feeling that I was maybe the coolest guy in my nerd friend group, and that maybe I sort of was shining a little bit of my light on them and their otherwise dark basement-y lives.
It's almost a laughable concept, really.
Yeah, so I hung out with the nerds in my grade, and then I hung out with these two guys that were a year younger than me. I don't know exactly how it panned out to be that way, but we just became good friends. They didn't go to the LAN party. I don't know if they were invited, but even if I asked them, they just would have laughed at me because of dicks.
Plus, computers were so heavy.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, we didn't have laptops. I mean, we had I think the computer that I was playing Half-Life on at the time was a 1.6 gigahertz, Pentium 2 or Pentium 3 or something. It was a huge Sony. It was a huge machine. And it wasn't just that. I mean, the monitor wasn't even a flat panel, so I had to carry a 40 or 50 pound monitor over there.
We digress.
Yeah. So get to the LAN party. And while we're there, I'm being kind of lame, and one of these four girls that we would hang out with hits me up. So I have to make a decision. Am I going to hang out with the nerds and get my ass kicked in Half-Life all night? Which, by the way, is fun, okay? But at some point, it became like a GoldenEye night, and it's fun and everything, but I can't...
You can't use hats.
You can't go down on one knee and just slide around as Oddjob the entire time.
I know this is unpopular, but I don't actually like GoldenEye. I don't think it's a good first-person shooter. I just think it was the first good-ish first-person shooter on a console.
You're going to get your ass kicked for this, You're not only, outraging the nerd community. There's, a huge jock community. Everybody played GoldenEye.
I know.
What are you doing right now?
I know. Everybody loves GoldenEye. It's just that I was bad at it.
Next? Mario Kart? Waste of time?
I think I didn't like it because I wasn't very good at it, but I felt like I was good at other games, so I should be good at it. Does that make sense?
Never could master that power slide, and he just gave up. Everybody played his
You're messing with me.
Went down on one knee so that you were even shorter, because he was already, really short. Yeah, and then, you would turn the corner, and somebody's gun was already too high, and they'd have to point way down to shoot.
And that's the thing. In most first-person shooters, you can lower the gun really easily. So I go over to Veronica's house. It was Vero, Elsie, Reina, and Bones. We crammed into my car, and we went out. Honda Civic.
It was pretty shiny.
It was brand new. I probably had only had it for 6 months, maybe less. So they want to go out.
Kevin had no suggestions to bring to the table. He said, "Sure, where do you all want to go out tonight?"
Oh, by the way, me and Bill was completely in the dark about this whole...
I know, I didn't hit them up.
That's the key point to this whole story is
deception.
Finally, we weren't invited to a LAN party because we probably would have said no. We would have loved the invite to actually pretend to be cool for one night and go to a bar, hang out with girls that we all knew. Instead, the phones were just silent that night.
No space in the car. Excuse.
I think the best thing to do here is to pause my version of the story, and you guys should continue.
Well, I know what the name of the bar was that you went to, but it's changed names so many times. Right now, it's Whiskey Joe's, and it's out there where Rusty Pelican on Key Biscayne was. Chris, how did we find out that he had a date with 3 girls that night?
That's a good question. I think the crux of it comes down to basically some pretty elite detective work. I think we were hanging out at your house, and Hoffman was coming around.
There's a very real possibility that Kevin couldn't help himself and he just sent a text message saying, hanging out with 3 chicks.
Texts in those days, sure, they were pretty old school. We preferred call. My thumbs, they were not built for texting, so pretty slow. So I'm pretty sure I called Kevin and he was pretty suspect in terms of what he was doing that night.
True.
Pretty shady, keeping the details vague. We knew something was going down.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a case of tracking him.
Right, and we definitely had
no GPS, no nothing.
Nothing to do, and a lot of time on our hands, and a lot of, jealousy.
None of the girls spilled the beans?
Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
Maybe Elsie or Lorena, because Lorena was German, I'm English. It's not a match made in heaven, but I'm pretty sure she fancied me. I think it possibly the European link.
Right, so I'm inside. We've gotten to this place. It's Key Biscayne.
not bad.
Oh, we were going on the underage night. We were going on the night that you could go when you were under 18. I don't even know if that's like legal anywhere in Florida, but they
It's a
had
real
a night.
thing.
It was a Thursday night thing or a Friday night thing or something.
Yeah,
and
it was like laser tag or this.
I
Kevin's
don't know
not
what
much
I
of a
was
dancer,
expecting.
so what the hell is he doing there?
I know, right? I have no idea what I'm doing there. I don't even know what I'm expecting as we approach it. Because when we get there, it's just like a giant field of cars parking on grass and stuff, and then some buildings.
Seeping down into the muddy ground after a hard night's rain.
I felt like I was walking into one of those layers with like all of the foot soldiers in one of the 80s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles things. Like it was so like ominous walking up to it.
Rich
and
detail.
There's nothing around.
It's like a warehouse.
Yeah, it's like a warehouse in a field. It's really strange. So go inside, and it's a total maze. I don't know where we're going or what we're doing, but I end up hanging out with them and dancing with all the girls like the whole night.
So we find out where Kevin and his posse of ladies have headed off to, and all we can think of immediately is to go out there ourselves. Right now, we'll plan later.
At that stage, you've got to bear in mind it's
Yeah.
quite clear
Suspect.
that he's in the classic friend zone territory, and
We needed to be there in case something went wrong.
as a direct result, he was pretty much being used as a taxi.
Yes.
And really, so if you think about it, we were just having his back.
That's what we were ultimately worried about. Yeah, I agree. So we head out to Key Biscayne, which is an area of Miami where, yeah, you don't get in too much trouble, but there's a couple bars.
It's probably what, half
offered
an hour
out there.
from our house?
Yeah, about half an hour. But you have to pay a toll to get out to Key Biscayne, and you head over a large bridge.
See, that was my plan the whole time. I figured if there's a toll, there's no way Bill will fall.
To be
50
fair,
cents,
to be fair,
no way.
I paid the toll.
Yeah. Chris was driving, so I was in the clear as far as the expensiveness of the outing.
No petrol contribution and nothing.
So, there was a lot of faith, in this plan that everything would work out. Like, we would just find Kevin,
We'd find him. We'd track him.
that we would be able to think of a way to get him back.
So we gave ourselves half an hour to drive.
So we find this bar. There's just a maze of cars, but we find his car relatively quickly, and then try to start discussing what we're going to do about this. And
Yeah.
Chris made an excellent point. Like, he is clearly being used by these girls. He's never going to get with any of these girls. Never, no way, right? Right, Kevin?
That's what you think.
He's just a glorified taxi. So I think the logical and obvious thing that we had to do
Was
was
to advertise
drive,
him as such.
advertise him. He didn't need to only make cab fares off this one night. He needed more rides. We needed further revenue stream for Kevin. So we drive further down Key Biscayne to the next Quickie Mart, and most cabs are yellow. So we
Yeah.
thought, let's write something in yellow on his car
A
too.
bit of
So-
New York deli mustard goes a long way.
right. So
Picked up one of those bad boys, headed back to the parking lot, and in a classic high school teenage boy mentality, we thought, what's better than to draw taxi on the back windscreen with his telephone number underneath on the shiny
Yeah.
brand new car.
And
So he was pretty precious about it at this point.
I think the biggest question mark was how long was it going to take for Kevin and everybody to come, and all the girls to come back
we
out.
were a bit unsure as to how long they'd actually been there.
We needed most of our night available so that we can make sure we were there for the moment that this happened.
So we cleared our busy schedule.
Right.
We turned down a couple of party invites, and we sat in the car park. For about
plenty of
3
party
hours.
invites. Yeah, we probably had Rappapontsons call us 2 or 3 times. Yeah, Runger, a couple of things. We call our separate parents, all claimed to be sleeping over at each other's houses that night so we could really clear the schedule.
Genius.
I know.
Yeah.
No one's ever done that before.
So the original thought process.
And we're just terrified that Kevin's going to walk out and notice Chris's car parked nearby.
How close did you guys walk?
I would say about 20, 30 meters away.
I'd probably agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's metric. So
Yeah.
Imperial,
So
Yeah.
like 400
probably
feet?
20, 30 yards.
You see, there's way too much
yards.
British influence in this group. I've
Sure.
switched over to meters now. But anyways, we wait. We watch plenty of people walk by. They're all kind of having a good laugh looking at the windshield that has taxi written on it.
Got a few giggles.
I had a few giggles, but we're fully reclined in our seats, just terrified that he's going to see.
Protective
What would
mode.
Kevin even do if he saw us in this car? And I mean, Chris had a really
Good old-fashioned
recognizable car because he had no bumper on his 1996 forest
Yeah.
green Ford Explorer.
After an unfortunate illegal U-turn.
With the same girls, too.
Yes, actually, it was with the same guy.
These girls are
Trouble.
bad luck. That's
Trouble.
why we were worried about Kevin.
Absolutely. So this is the same Explorer from the yelling from Cars story, and it may even be in some other ones.
That car had a tough time, man.
Yeah.
Illegal U-turn,
Yeah. Good.
lost its bumper. got sold for
thrown at it.
a record low price on
But it
eBay.
was, it was
the only car that had like any space in it, the Honda Civic. It was like a can of sardines.
Yeah.
And that's why we just didn't believe that Kevin could possibly take all these girls for a night out. He said, "Oh, I'm fitting all these girls." And we're
So-
like, "In your Honda Civic?"
So fast forward 2.5, 3 hours, we're still waiting there for Kevin to
You guys waited the whole time?
How pathetic. Now the story's like turning on us now.
And-
We've
and
waited 2 or 3 hours.
You got to bear in mind this is pre-smartphone.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there literally doing nothing. Maybe listening to 94.9 Zeta. Slight tangent about American radio. The same songs still play on the radio as when I was in high school. It's like 15 years ago. It's
90s,
crazy.
2000s, 2010s, man. We're just living in that nostalgia.
I like the rap stations. This isn't going yet, but there's like 5 rap stations in LA. So there's always Tupac, Biggie, or Drake on at any time.
Any given month.
That's pretty
The
cool.
Holy Trinity. Although you are missing Jay-Z.
So I would say the moment finally comes where Kevin and his ladies, quote unquote, come walking out of this bar. The great thing about this part of the story is there's perspective involved because we hear the story from Kevin.
So here's what I remember. I remember us walking out, seeing the car, and then me being so pissed. I wasn't sure who did it. I assumed it was them. But, it was like we had done some pranks. I feel like Danny may have been mad at us at the time for something, whatever. So I thought, I don't know, I had all these different suspicions, but at one point I got out an airsoft gun, swung it around, and aimed it.
It was like he was shooting
No. What's the Keanu Reeves movie where he's the surfer? Point Break. It's like when he shoots the gun up in the air, he's like, ah!
That is pretty much how I picture
Yes.
Kanjin in a race.
No, but this where I'm gonna already just cut you off because that's where we saw a very stark difference in what happened. I saw a man like he was just so embarrassed.
Weeping.
It was probably like the coolest night of his life. And he just kind of shucks the women to his car quickly, and I think I saw his hands like go on his head and kind of like squat down to the ground in like pain. Like he knew what had happened.
I think
he knew who did this.
He made one very shrewd decision,
Yeah.
and that was to not attempt to wipe the mustard.
There was never a grabbing of an airsoft gun from a trunk and a waving around motion in Key Biscayne.
It was in my glove compartment.
It's just like that South Park episode where Jimmy and Cartman are trying to decide who made the Kanye West joke about fish sticks, and the perspective is just totally different. Anyways, Kevin gets out of there pretty quickly, and obviously driving off in rage.
So
And
at that point, obviously, in an ideal world, we would then like to be able to follow him home.
that's what we attempted, too.
Absolutely.
We tried to get out of this parking lot, but at this point, enough cars had arrived where now we've been boxed in, and we're
I'm not
just,
sure how we let that happen.
well, 3 hours of sitting in a car, hotboxing it the entire time. Things might get a little distorted.
Hey, you guys smoking weed?
Hotboxing from maybe like a laying and farting perspective.
I don't even know that's a thing. I think
don't
it's
know,
more like
it's probably
a
not.
shit boxing.
I think I confused Dutch ovening and hotboxing.
I think that's
with,
called
like,
fart
things.
boxing.
I think Dutch oven is the much more appropriate.
Actually, well, there's
What do
no
you call a
bet.
mobile one? It's like a Dutch food truck.
We ended up having to wait about half an hour, I'm pretty sure, to get out of the actual parking lot.
Right. But, and I'm extremely disappointed. I think I keep repeating myself in the car. I'm like, man, I cannot believe we're not going to be able to see what Kevin does. I really wanted to follow him. And Chris is sort of sarcastically being like, it's all right, mate. He's a total bitch when he drives, and we'll catch up for sure.
This is the moment, like basically the crux of the story where my perfect night becomes a nightmare and their like loser night becomes the perfect night.
Yeah, it's the payoff moment. Big payoff. So we're finally driving back over the bridge. We get back onto US 1. I'm just so disappointed. We put in so much time. All I got to do was see Kevin sort of momentarily break down, but I knew more would come if we follow him.
As we were heading out of the Key Biscayne Bridge, I just opened that puppy up, the old Ford Explorer. It moves. So as we were coming over the crest of the bridge, it's a pretty strict speed limit on that.
We see this black Honda Civic in the distance, but we're still thinking about how ridiculous and impossible it would be to catch up. We're like, oh, what if that's Kevin? Sarcastically. As we get closer, it's like the yellow letters just get bigger and bolder and fatter, and we're like, that Civic says taxi on the back. Oh my gosh, how did we catch up to him? Chris and Hoffman's in the car with us too.
It's tagging along.
Yeah, he's a great co-pilot actually. So we all rolled down the windows, and it's like we didn't even communicate. All the windows rolled down, all the fists stuck right out the window, and they all pumped like in victory. And I think that's the moment Kevin knew exactly who constructed this whole thing. We're dying laughing in the car because Chris was right all along. Kevin does drive like
It
a
took him
bitch.
half
We
an
caught
hour
up.
to drive like 300 meters.
Yes.
I was so angry that I flew over the bridge. Like I probably got air in this little Civic. I got pulled over immediately. Like Instantly pulled over. I'm already like so hopped up on adrenaline from like
dancing all night.
no, I've been walking out and seeing my car and I'm like, you motherfuckers. You know, like, I want to find you. And or whoever it was, you know, obviously. I want my justice. I'm so angry. And then I got pulled over and I'm like, I gotta be nice to a cop now? I gotta like calm down?
And explain the mustard.
He didn't even ask me.
Cop didn't ask to see your official cab license.
But that's the thing. I didn't feel comfortable enough to even say to the officer, like, dude, can you please give me a break? I am having the worst night of my life. I mean, you can see by the mustard that was put on there by I should have done something.
No, the women wouldn't see you break down in such pain like that. You couldn't ask for forgiveness and sympathy.
You couldn't snitch on us.
It gives me the ticket. It's like a $300 ticket. It's so much money. But I was flying. I was going almost double the speed limit or something. It was only like 30 or 35, and I was probably going 60.
You're not going to stay in the industry that long, Kevin, if you're going to drive that recklessly with your taxi passengers. You know?
And this is before Uber. There was not
you
Uber
get a 1
yet.
star for that. Even in London.
So the whole way back, the girls were all just like... like, if I wasn't friend zoned before that point, I surely would have been after all the sympathy.
Maybe that was actually how you ended up going.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever got friend zoned again after that.
It's like a Florence Nightingale approach. It's like the nursing him back to health. But it had an hourglass on that relationship, though, didn't it?
But really, like a week later, now we're dating, and then that didn't last long.
I'm tired of telling this story from the approach that Kevin was probably tired from all the dancing that he was doing that night. I could just imagine, like, 4 martini glasses, like, in his grasp, just kind of, like, shuffling around and him just, like, handing them out as they needed them.
We were drinking.
Virgin martinis, anyone?
It was
Shirley Temple.
So we spent a bunch of time at Vero's house talking to her brother who got a bunch of tickets, and he was giving me some advice on, I don't know. And I didn't fight the ticket, which is stupid. I should have fought it.
Kevin wasn't as plugged into his, like, legislation internet forums where he could have, like, easily contested something like that, like he does these days.
Yeah, if it was me today, I would have been like, am I being detained? Am I being detained?
Where's my lawyer?
What did I do? Right? I thought this was America. And then I would have put on my V for Vendetta mask and pushed that cop on the ground.
Seriously, Kevin's angst is so high with cops right now, I feel like a cop could pull him over and be like, sir, I just thought it'd be a good idea if I let you know that it's always a safe idea, a good idea to wear your seatbelt. And then, like, you just argue back into a rage that eventually leads you to getting pulled out of the car and, like, arrested. Even though it was just a good advice attempt.
You know, I think it's safe to say Kevin got his comeuppance.
Yeah, that was a quick lesson.
I mean, what is the lesson?
Oh, and I got in trouble for leaving the LAN party to go to some ridiculous club.
Everybody got pissed off.
Don't ditch your friends.
I just think the lesson is, when you're a nerd, you really cannot easily break away from your regular groups. Like, you have to be extremely diligent about leaving, because every single circle you were a part of came back and got pissed off at you for that one night that you went out without them.
The best part is, they were still playing GoldenEye when I got back to the LAN party.
Oh, you were gone?
I had to go back and pick up my freaking computer.
Yeah, Kevin probably showed up earlier in the night, spawned his character, and, like, hit him in a corner, and just came back hours later and, like, just got back on. He's like, I've been here the whole time.
I just started one Red Alert 2 game with them and didn't do anything. And they still hadn't even attacked by the end of it. They were just making Rocketeers.
All you did was drop down, like, 2 or 3 waves of paratroopers in their bunkers, and like, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a real shame you didn't contest the ticket, because you've got a pretty much a stonewall alibi there.
Yeah, exactly. I would have been like, I was at a LAN party the whole time.
Did
no one would ever say they were at a LAN party if they weren't.
Did we reconcile this situation quickly, or
I think we were.
What was the outcome?
Immediately, right? No.
Yeah.
What was the last time we hung out before I went to college?
I mean, from my perspective, there was, much hilarity to be had, and it was just you getting over yourself, which happened pretty quickly. So.
You needed that lesson.
That was the day I became a man.
The reality is you can't spend all your life at a LAN party. You've got to see other friends at some point.
You need to be a part of the group that's spying on the guy that's going out.
I was just happy that the cool kids wanted me back. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I was mad at Bill, mad at Chris, and maybe I was just like lashing out.
I think what ultimately it was is that every group that Kevin started, we became better. He started Airsoft. He was clearly the worst player by the end of it.
That's ridiculous.
In CS,
quickly replaced by
we eventually asked Steve to be on our team before he was the last kid left in, like, the pickup line. Then you started Counter-Strike Clan, and we're obviously all better at Counter-Strike than you.
Listen, I even brought a girl to Airsoft one time that I had a crush on, and then Chris went on like 2 dates with her.
how I roll.
So listen,
That's how I roll.
I was getting you guys back, and you guys still were crushing my
Are we
dreams.
rolling into like other stories here? We're just like planting
No, we'll
seeds, other stories. I don't know where.
I
This
don't know
is
how
going.
much of this will end up in it. Anyway, here's my moral. My moral was just stay cool. If you could be cool, you could deal with that stuff. If I had been cool, I wouldn't have got the ticket. And I could have very likely cleaned it off, because I bet nobody even took a picture with a camera phone. But I bet I could have cleaned it off and then just pretended like I had no idea what they were talking about, and it would have driven them nuts. They would have had no satisfaction.
Oh, we knew.
and-
We knew you knew.
And if you were cool, you wouldn't have been there in the first place. So
That's probably true. It's just, here's the thing. With Bill and Chris, like, stepping in on every time I, like, have a crush on a girl, I just had to moneyball this thing and play the odds. So that's why I was like, all right, 4 girls and me going to the thing. And it worked.
We didn't really know how to get out of each other's way. It was like essentially high school was 3 years of not being able to get a girlfriend even if we wanted to. And then in our senior year where there was actually an opportunity, we were like our own worst enemy.
we wanted to sabotage each other.
Yeah, we couldn't allow somebody to break away. We'd already endured 3 years of just like total
Mario Kart.
nerdom and like loneliness and like, listen, all we have to do
Super
is be
Smash
lonely
Brothers.
one more year together, okay?
So after that, like a few months after all that stuff, broke up with me, and it was pathetic
Oh, and then
because
he was
I was
playing
so
a
lame.
lot of dashboard.
No,
confessions
I was
around that
not.
time.
But the point is, I never saw her again until I kept seeing her in commercials. I was like, Sarah, get in here! You gotta see this!
He's in this McDonald's commercial, and I really want some fries right now. Let's go.
Which is cool. Not making fun of the commercial she was in. I think that's pretty dope.
No.
Just in case she hears this, which she will. All right, that's it.